Have you ever thought about moving to South Dakota? Done a little research? You might even have watched a few videos about moving there just to realize you've watched 4 different videos all carrying the same information. Welcome to the world of AI garbage. Here's the thing. Every moving to South Dakota video says the same 10 facts. No income tax, Mount Rushmore, it's cold. Cool. Thanks for explaining the totally obvious, Mr. AI voice. That's not what we're doing in this video. We actually dug deeper into South Dakota to find things you should know before you start calling realtors in Deadwood. Let's take a look. Number 10, the RV legal system. Believe it or not, South Dakota built a legal system specifically for people with no fixed address. And that's because the locals live alongside a steady stream of residents who don't actually live there. The state passed laws specifically to make it easier for full-time RVers and nomads to establish residency. And with just one night in the state, plus a mail forwarding address, someone can get a South Dakota driver's license and say they're from South Dakota. Now this is sort of necessary. South Dakota has a ton of people driving RVs around that state, going from campground to campground. That's how a lot of retirees spend their golden years. They buy a motorhome and they go to South Dakota for some reason. When it starts getting really cold, they head to the Arizona desert. Not the cities, the actual desert. The whole time, they are a South Dakota resident. There's kind of an industry built around that. You have companies like Dakota Post, which lets you use their address as your own address, and therefore you can get your license, you could register your vehicle, and you become a South Dakota resident. Now, there are some politicians that are trying to kill this off, but right now it's still a thing, which a big reason a lot of people were doing this is because they're retired, they're living in an RV, or they're doing the van life, and like most of us know, South Dakota has no state income tax, so they save a little money there. And that's probably a good piece of advice to just about anyone that's retired and living in a van. Head to South Dakota. Number 9, it's a gun-friendly state. South Dakota is very much a gun-friendly state. They really back up the Second Amendment, and they don't like a lot of paperwork getting between you and your Second Amendment in South Dakota. Now, they do have a few requirements for firearms. For permitless carry, you must be at least 18 years old and legally authorized to possess a firearm. If you do want to have a permit, you got to be 18 plus, and it's valid for 5 years. Now, they also have this thing called the Gold Card Permit, available at 21. It exempts the holder from NICS background checks when buying a firearm from a federal dealer. They also have the enhanced permit, which means you went through all the requirements. You took a gun safety, use of force training, and live fire course. All the good stuff. You did it the right way. They're going to give you an enhanced permit. Here's a few other rules you should know about firearms in South Dakota. Carrying a firearm is banned inside a county courthouse. Schools are prohibited in all elementary schools, secondary school premises, and school vehicles. Meaning don't bring your dad's Desert Eagle on the bus with you. One other thing, private properties. Banned where explicitly restricted by property owner or manager. Meaning you can go to Buffalo Wild Wings, but if they have a sign there that says no firearms beyond this point, you got to take it back to your car. Maybe some rural bars have check-ins for your firearms like they used to have in the Old West. I don't know. Now, why do I bring this up as something you should know? Well, there's a few different reasons. Some people just don't like firearms, and this would really turn them off about moving to South Dakota. Once they got there, they find out everyone could be packing at the grocery store. You know, they might not be too keen to move there. Now, I own firearms myself. I don't see a need for them out in society, but some people do, and that's their right, and that's fine. Just like it's fine that you don't like firearms and you don't want them in your house. Everyone has their own way of doing things. The other reason is, let's say you come from a place where not everyone has concealed carry rules, and they might not be carrying a firearm. You might act differently in situations like road rage. Some guy weighs $125, 5'6", 5'7", with moose in his hair, cuts you off in traffic, you get out with a tire iron, start swinging it, you could end up dead. And I'm not a lawyer, but he might have a pretty good defense on why he canoed the top of your head. Know before you go, as the old saying goes. Number 8, the video lottery. Yes, this is a problem there. Video lottery is a bigger cultural and civic issue than outsiders expect. The debate over video lottery gambling is active enough that some South Dakota cities have started giving limits of how many machines a location can have, whether it's a bar, restaurant, whatever. Well over $1 billion a year get wagered through the state's video lottery system. It's a genuine local political topic, not a footnote. Some people want rid of it, and a lot of people are going, well, it brings in in a lot of money to the state. Why would we want to get rid of it? I mean, man, just let people live their lives. Don't try and push your morals on other people. If they're not hurting you, don't worry about it. If it's your husband has a gambling problem, worry about him. Don't worry about the people at the local bar that like to sit down and play some video poker, where 4 old-timers have to wait in line because all the machines are taken up because, you complained enough and the state restricted how many they could have. So they do have some video poker there. Now, this could be a good thing for you, or it could be a negative thing for you if you don't like gambling. Just know what you're getting into when you move to South Dakota, especially if someone you love has a gambling problem. It could be easier for them to gamble there. Number 7, understanding reservation land. Reservation land carries real judicial differences. South Dakota has 9 tribal reservations with their own governments, law enforcement, and legal jurisdictions. My son had a run-in with this. He was at an Indian casino in Texas and let one of his friends that was like 20 have a drink of his beer while they were at the casino. They had him on video. He had to go to tribal court, the whole deal. So if you're moving near or onto reservation land, understand that state law, county law, and tribal law can apply differently depending on exactly where you are. They might have little tweaks to their laws versus the state law or the county law, but it's just common sense stuff. As the old saying goes, don't be stupid, especially on reservation land. Number 6, the Sturgis Rally. Now this one sort of falls into, yeah, we already know that, but I thought I'd give you a different twist and tell you some actual stats and facts about this one. In case you don't know, this little town called Sturgis only has about 7,000 people. Every year they have the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, which effectively overwhelms an entire region for 10 days each summer. The rally draws several 100,000 visitors to a town of about 7,000, generating hundreds of millions of dollars to the local economy. If you live anywhere near the Black Hills region, expect road closures, packed businesses, noise, and strained infrastructure like the internet. So many people flood into this area that everyone's internet just kind of, slows down because it's overwhelmed for the area. Now here's the facts about Sturgis. The first event was held on August 14th, 1938, and it was called the Black Hills Motorcycle Classic. And it was pretty much just a motorcycle race. The very first race featured 9 riders, 8 on Indian motorcycles, and only 1 Harley Davidson. Now, the rally was skipped once, or a couple years in a row, 1939 to 1941. This was due to wartime gas rationing. The crowd size usually tracks about 500,000 people, with a record 739,000 attending the 75th anniversary in 2015. The economic impact generates roughly $800 million in annual revenue to South Dakota. Now, this thing grew from a 1-day race to a full 10-day event officially recognized by the city and by the state, really. It is located 52 miles from Mount Rushmore and close to Devil's Tower and the Badlands of South Dakota. Now, in the past, some companies or whatever business people have tried to really capitalize on this. And in 2019, a federal court ruled that Sturgis and the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally are in the public domain, meaning the rally belongs to the motorcycle community, or the community overall, and not a single corporation. The Sturgis Rally's demographics are shifting to a younger attendance. Ages 25 to 44 rose 29% in 2023. Nearly 40% of the rally goers actually tow their motorcycles to Sturgis rather than riding the entire journey. That's about a 12% increase since 2015. I think it's a really interesting part of American pop culture. I'm not a motorcycle guy. Used to ride in the desert when we were younger. We had motorcycles and dune buggies, but that's about the extent of my motorcycle riding. I just think this is such a cool event. If you're living in that area for 10, 11, 12 days, because a couple days after and before, the place is kind of crazy. Number 5, gravel roads. Yes, they have a lot of gravel roads here. Gravel and minimum maintenance roads are common outside the towns. Plenty of rural roads aren't paved at all and receive limited plowing during the winter. Most people will tell you you're gonna need all-season tires or winter tires depending on where you live. And GPS apps sometimes route people down roads that are rougher than they appear online. I would suggest at least getting a Subaru if you move there, but I think you have to be in Oregon to get a Subaru. I could be wrong. I have a Subaru. I have that little racy one, the WRX. I don't think I'd take it on a gravel road. My wife's Ascent. I think that could go on there just fine. Number 4, the healthcare. Now, this is kind of a common thing for any state that's got large swaths of rural areas, and South Dakota has a lot of that. Healthcare and specialist access can require real travel in rural areas. For anything beyond the routine care, driving 1 to 7 hours to Sioux Falls or Rapid City, or even out of the state for certain specialists, is a normal part of life in rural counties in South Dakota. This is really important in case you're a retiree thinking about moving to South Dakota. You already know your ailments. I would definitely check and see where the specialists you need are located before you make that jump. Don't assume every hospital has all the same stuff you need. In rural communities, and especially these days, a lot of rural hospitals are shutting down. There may be a lot of travel in it if you got to get something special taken care of, or you have some kind of ongoing medical issue. If you're 20 years old and you just heard me say all that, it makes no sense to you, because at this point in your life, you're going to live forever. Give me a call when you get to 50 and realize that the end is near. Honestly, I'm at that stage in my life where I get a pain in like my leg or something like that. I'm like, did I injure myself, or is that just the new normal? Occasionally, it is the new normal. And sometimes that new normal kind of sucks. Number 3, politics. Now, we're not talking about politics as in opinions or which side is right or wrong. I'm just telling you the lay of the land so you know what you're getting into. This is conservative Republican territory. Whenever we have a presidential election, I guarantee that map on whatever news channel you're watching, South Dakota is always red. Very red. Not as red as West Virginia, Mississippi, and Oklahoma, which I believe didn't even have one county vote Democrat during the election. Now, to most people, this doesn't matter. Only about 33% of Americans actually follow politics and care about that stuff. And only about 40% of those people follow politics on a daily basis. Everyone else could give two shits about politics. If you're one of those people and you don't care, forget everything I said on this one. Just move to South Dakota if everything else falls in line for you. But if you are a hardcore liberal and you're out there protesting and stuff like that, yeah, this probably isn't a good place for you. Minnesota's just to the east. I'd suggest going there. But if you do end up moving to South Dakota and you are into left-leaning politics, I'd keep it to myself. Don't put bumper stickers on your car. Don't walk around town with Biden-Harris shirts. You know, common sense stuff. Same common sense, don't wear a Trump Vance shirt in San Francisco. Because even though it's only 30%, there's a lot of wackadoodles out there on both sides of the aisle, and you never know what kind of nonsense you're going to get into. Over politics. There. Good. Warning. Moving on. Number 2, the isolation. If you're one of those people that has lived in a city or a more crowded town, moving outside of one of the cities in South Dakota means you're living rural, and their rural is isolated, very much so. And the isolation here can hit harder than expected, especially in winter. You got shorter daylight hours, wide open empty landscape, and in most cases, some serious distance between your friends and your family back home. Moving rural, really to any state, but especially in places like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, even eastern Montana, that's a little bit different. It's a common enough experience that it's worth planning your winter in advance. Hobbies, routines, community groups, rather than assuming you'll just adjust. That usually breaks a lot of people. The isolation during the winter when they move to a rural area, they've decided they've always wanted to do that, so they fill up their Subaru with a bunch of stuff they bought at REI, and they buy a log cabin someplace in South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota. You're doing good through summer and spring. Fall hits and you start to question why you did this. Winter really hits and you've made a horrible mistake and you're gone before next winter. That's a scenario that plays out more than most people expect. 13% of the people that move to South Dakota from other states leave within 1 year. Now, that doesn't count people that were just sent there to work for 6-7 months, something like that. These are people that actually meant to move there and live there, and they changed their mind. 8% of the people are gone within 6 months. Now, that's not half or 40%, but it's a pretty good number for people who decided they want to live there. That tells me they didn't watch enough of those AI videos explaining the same 10 things every single video. And that 13% comes from the U.S. Census Bureau's Quick Facts for South Dakota. While I was reading that, I found a really interesting fact. After you get past the states that are touching South Dakota, which is always where the majority of the people that leave a state move to, right after North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska, the next state with the highest percentage of South Dakotans moving to is California, then Wisconsin, Texas, and Washington. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to South Dakota or any state in the union, there's a link for Home and Money in the description area below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, where are you from? Now, this one's a little local quirk that's, happens in other states, but I guess it's a bigger deal here in South Dakota. I'd seen a couple videos on stereotypes for the different states, and one that came up a few times on different lists about South Dakota was people asking where they're from when they meet them. Now, that's just polite conversation in most cases, but you hear it so much, you start to feel like they're just sizing you up. In small towns especially, your hometown, your job, and often your extended family becomes social credentials. Expect it to come up constantly in small talk, not as rudeness, it's just how people get a feel for you. Now, I thought this is just a stereotype and maybe it's not that big of a thing, so I contacted my rep that takes care of all my merchandise for this company I use, because I knew she was from South Dakota. And I asked her about that. And she said, yeah, that's a thing. They also do it in North Dakota and Iowa in her experience. But it is a thing, and it's normally just a conversation starter. They're really not sizing you up. She said in most cases, it's just a lack of not having anything else to start a conversation with a stranger. I don't mind that kind of small talk. I mean, that's always fine. Where are you from? What's your favorite football team? Where'd you go to high school? Where'd you go to college? Those are all fine. Some people do find it intrusive, especially nowadays, but back when a lot of us were younger, that's how you got to know people. It's called a conversation. So I get the feeling they still like to have conversations in South Dakota. All right, that's today's video. What do you think about South Dakota? A lot of people are on the fence. Would you move there? Wouldn't you move there? How do you feel about South Dakota? It's a strangely popular state these days. I mean, some people would never move there, but I hear more and more people, not just those RVers, but more and more people are talking about moving to South Dakota. If you live there, we'd like to know what kind of negatives you have about the state. All right, if you liked this video, I'm sure you're gonna like this one. It's about regretting moving to Alabama. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.